Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're connecting from. Welcome to another episode of Style to Impact Live. If you are here live, let me know in the comments that you're here. If you are watching the replay, still let me know in the comments that you came back and you're watching the replay. And so I want to thank you. If you came back to watch this conversation, thank you very much for coming back and listening to today's conversation. If you're here live, as I said, let me know that you're in the chat. Let me know that you are here in the chat, because it definitely, whenever I see the chat going, it definitely gives me the confidence that I need to show up and continue having these conversations, because I know not only are you engaging with me, but these conversations are having a meaningful impact on your life and your personal style. So thank you all very much for being here. Before I start any of these conversations, I usually like to start with a wellness check in, because I think it's important that we take a moment to pause and to reflect, to see how we're feeling, and to really identify what is it we need right now to show up intentionally for ourselves. What do we need right now? So if you're here live, let me know in the chat. How are you feeling? How are you doing? Is it spring where you're living, or is it like still winter, but we're in spring? It's one crazy time. It's a crazy time this year when it comes to the weather. I do not understand it, but nonetheless, it's a blessing to be alive. It's a blessing to feel encouraged and empowered every single day, for me at least. The word for my personal life this year is peace, and I'm working strongly towards having that sense of feeling, that sense of peace, feeling that sense of calm within my spirit and my being. And so that's how I'm feeling today, right? Let me know how you're feeling. If you're new to this space, I'm Salida Roberts. I'm the founder of Style to Impact. And I truly believe that representation is not just you being in the room or having a seat at the table, but it's also how you show up, right? It's important that you show up in a way that truly represents who you are. I work with women who are, women who are ready to get unstuck. Like, you're stuck in your personal style, you're stuck in a space that doesn't feel like you can thrive and like you can have the impact that you want. You want to increase your confidence. Women who are ready to embrace and reflect more of who they are in their wardrobe and their image. These women want to elevate their presence as well as their visibility, and they want to feel as confident and fierce on the outside as they do on the inside. So if that's you, let's connect. Definitely hit that connect button. I would love to hear from you. Last week, if you joined me live last week, or you went back to see what conversations I had live last week, you would have noticed I talked about how can you become a change agent for dismantling image bias. If you haven't gotten a chance to listen to that conversation, then I encourage you, if you're here on LinkedIn, go to my profile, go to activities, and go to the event section on my profile, and you'll see that conversation there. If you're watching me on YouTube, or YouTube is where you like to go and listen to these conversations afterwards, you can certainly go back to my YouTube channel, which is Style to Impact with Salida, and you'll see that conversation that I'm referring to. And so with that in mind, we're coming out from the idea of how can you be a change agent to dismantle image bias. There's this question that I got is, how can I dismantle image bias when image bias seems to be rooted in this idea of professionalism, right? Professionalism. And so I wanted to come in today and have this conversation as to, from my perspective, how I see what are the problems that I see with professionalism, how it really holds women back, especially women of color, and what can we do as a collective. And this is where it comes back to us being change agents, to really dismantling those biases, to be able to create more opportunities for women and for women of color to have a sense of inclusion and belonging in the workplace and the spaces that they're entering to. And so in my typical fashion, whenever I'm thinking about topics like this, usually I think about a topic and write my title and I put it there. And then what I do is I'll go and do research to see, what are some opinions out there on this particular topic, because I never want to have a conversation just from my perspective only, because that is what bias, sometimes our biases will inform some of the decisions and the things that we do, is when we're solely letting our own beliefs be the only voice or the only perspective being heard. And so I did a little bit of research on Twitter under the hashtag professionalism, because I wanted to see what were some of the conversations that were happening there on Twitter about professionalism. And I found an article that said that, by this author, where he talked about sharing his own perspective on why employees struggle with professionalism. I'm not going to go through the full article, but I'm just going to give you some extractions that I pulled from that. One of the things that he talked about in the article is that sometimes conforming makes a lot of sense. Red flag. That's a red flag for me. Conforming, I cannot think of any good example where conforming was something that everyone did and we had a good result from it. The other thing that he mentioned is that sometimes adjusting as employees, or employees should learn how to adjust at least some of their attitudes and behaviors to the realities of the workplace. Red flag again for me, because when we think of professionalism and how it's defined, it's another way of, based on someone else's personal belief and perspective as to how everyone should act, look, and sound, right? And if you're saying to me as an employee, as an individual, that you're coming into this company or this organization to work, and so one of the requirements is that you need to conform to the full idea as to what we think you should show up, how you should sound, how you should act, and how you should look. And it's important that you do that, not just for your success, but to also create a space where, our norms and beliefs are being uplifted. Now, I understand that in the workplace, we don't want to have chaos and confusion where everybody's doing their own thing. There must be some form of structure. But when we're looking at those structures, we have to look at it through the lens of whose perspective are these structures being built on. Another example that I found when it came to the idea of professionalism, what that meant, I saw someone posted and said, dressing for the job that you want and making sure that you're representing more of who you are. And of course, that one is the one that really spoke to me, because this is the work and the conversation that I always have with my clients, and I'm having, on workshops with organizations, is creating a space where, as individuals, you can represent more of who you are in that space, and showing up as more as who you are in the spaces that you're in. The other example that I found in terms of what it meant to be, what professionalism meant, is this young lady shared this article where she said that, once she entered the corporate space into the work world, and she was given all the antidotes in terms of how to show up, how to act, how to look, how to sound in order to be successful, in order to have a seat at the table. And for her, professionalism and the use of the word professionalism and be professional at all times meant that she had to mask who she was as an individual. She had to mask her humanity, and that meant that she had to shrink herself into this box to fit into an idea as to how she should show up in order to be successful. But then realizing that, going along with that definition, making sure that she spoke proper English, making sure that she presented herself based on the definition of what professional is, and saying please and thank you, didn't necessarily give her created opportunities for her to advance in her career. So while she was shrinking, the organization didn't create a space for her to, one, bring her authentic self into the space, and also create opportunities for growth. So I wanted to share with you today. I'm going to go through with you what are some of the problems that I've noticed, how it really holds women back, and what is it that we can do as individuals to become that change agent within our organizations and within ourselves, to be able to redefine what professional looks like, to make it more inclusive, to make it to give people a sense of belonging, to have a sense of belonging, to know that you can bring and be your most authentic self in in the spaces that you're going into. So I'm going to share my slide here for a second. And so, great. And so for me, there are three problems with the term professionalism and how we define professionalism. And the first thing is that professionalism in its definition, it's this idea that you're either too much or you're not enough, right? You're too much in that the way you express yourself is not professional. The way you speak in terms of your vernacular, your type of English words that you use can be perceived as not being professional. You may not be enough because, not enough in some instances where it's like, oh, we need you to be a little bit more vocal, a little bit more present. Like I've had experiences where, you're being evaluated and you're being told, oh, I've often been told that, okay, I need to tone it down. I'm too vocal. I'm too outspoken. I'm too this. I've been told that, right? In the name of professionalism, that I needed to tone myself down. Whereas on the other end, it's like you're not being enough. When you tone yourself down too much, then you're not showing that you're a leader. You're not displaying that you want to advance your career. You're not showing an interest, right? Those are all the things that you are being told when you're not enough. And in some instances, when it comes to appearance, it's like, you don't wear enough makeup, or you wear too much makeup, or you are not wearing the right clothing, or you're wearing too much. Walking into the office is not your runway, right? It's not your runway. So bring less of yourself, but then bring more of yourself, bring less of yourself. So there's always that tug and pull when it comes to who gets to define what professional looks like and what it means, because it's rooted in this bias that you're either too much or you're not enough. And so the second reason, problem that I see with professionalism is that it's based on the definition. The definition is based on the person defining it, meaning it's subjective, meaning it's based on, if I'm defining professionalism and what it means and how one should act, look, and sound, it's based on my own personal beliefs. It's based on, my upbringing and the culture and the environments that I would have gone into, some of the messages that I would have been told and that stayed with me, even though those messages didn't really make sense, right? I know getting into the corporate world, I was told, okay, you're in banking now. Banking is very traditional. You have to be careful what you wear. Don't wear anything that's too loud, that's too expressive, that makes you visible to everyone. You have to tone it down. Put your head down and do the work, and you will be successful. Don't try to speak up or be outspoken or do too much. Just go along to get along, right? And if I'm looking at that definition and like wholeheartedly, that's how I believe professionalism should be defined, then that's what I'm going to be projecting into the organization and the spaces that I'm going into, right? I'm defining it based on my own beliefs, based on my thought process behind that. I give you an example. Working in the financial sector, it's very traditional, and we were given, the bank that I was working at, we were given uniforms. And the uniform committee, it was a group of persons that came together and decided what our uniforms will look like every year. And every single year we got the uniforms, it was black and navy blue with a white shirt or a blue shirt. It looked the same. The type of shoes that we were told to wear, looked nothing like I don't want to like it's like shoes that you wear to walk around with like these clunky heels and the round front. Like there was nothing about it that spoke to how we should present ourselves and how we should look as individuals. And so I never knew who was on the committee at the time, right? I just knew there was a committee that made a decision and they went to HR and they told HR like what it is, what's the dress code, what is the uniform, what it's going to look like, what are the colors, and it's approved at that level. But none of us that the rule of law as to what professional looks like and the uniform that we're going to wear to depict that was happy. None of us were happy with that uniform. None of us felt great in it. There was no consideration for the body type of the women. There were no consideration for fit or anything like that. It was just like a standard cut and paste and everybody should wear it, right? And so I remember when I guess someone complained or the complaint or the discomfort got to HR, but it wasn't like an official complaint that we made. I guess everybody was talking and eventually trickled up, through the pipeline. And we got this email that said that they're revamping, they're looking at adding new members to the uniform committee. If you are interested, reply to the email. And then, of course, you'll know additional information will follow. And so I saw that email and I was like, yes, reply, I'm there. And I remember the first day I walked into the room. It was this conference room. You had about 12 persons already sitting at the desk. And I walked in and I looked around the room and I was like, no wonder our uniforms looks like this, because the people in the room that were making the decision as to what the uniform looked like had their own individual beliefs as to how we should show up as women, right? And so based on their beliefs, that's what was reflected in the uniform that we're given. And this is what I mean by one of the problems with professionalism is that the definition of it comes down to who is in charge of making the decisions when it comes to dress code and how we should show up. The third problem that I see with professionalism is that there's a double standard. When you think about it, a male colleague got his suit tailored, like went on vacation, came back, got some tailored suit, decided that he's going to wear his tailored navy blue suit with a pink button-down top, his Oxford shirt and a nice tie, polished black shoes, and he walks into the workplace and everyone looks and there's this expression of wow, oh my gosh. First of all, he's wearing pink shirt. Kudos to you. You look fabulous and you look amazing. And he does that every single day in and day out. He comes with this very polished, very clean, tailored look, but his personality is coming out because his watch represents and reflects who he is. The tie has a story behind it. The shirt has a story behind it. And he and his tailor are like best friends because his tailor is making him look great. And every single day he shows up to work, there is this message that's being filtered through the organizations like, oh, he looks great. Now, if we flip that on the other side, if a woman goes and decided that, okay, she needs to improve her image, her wardrobe to reflect more of who she is, to feel more confident, but still keeping in line with the industry that she's in. And she comes to work with her pleated skirt, her floral top and a blazer and some really cool pumps and a really nice handbag. She walks into the room and everybody goes, you look nice. Right? The comments like, you look nice. And then someone will be like, oh, is today your birthday? Or, are you celebrating something special? Or it's going to be like, oh, okay. Right? Or somebody is now formulating some thoughts in their mind. And then eventually, she does that day in, day out, same as the guy, come to work, dressed to represent more of who she is, showing up in that confident way. And then, someone is going to make the comment and say, oh, you think the office is your runway? This is not a fashion show. Why are you dressing that way? Why are you showing up this way? Like, you're trying to get attention. And that's where the double standard comes in, because for the male counterparts, for the guys, for the men, it's go, I love it, you look sharp, you look great, you look like a leader, you look like someone who will command the room, and you look like you're going to close the deal. And a woman does the same thing, representing who she is and what she wears. And the idea is like, oh, this is not a runway, the workplace is not a runway. Don't don't dress like that. Don't try to grab attention or anything like that. And that's where I find the three problems for me when it comes to professionalism is the idea behind it not being, you're either too much or not enough. It's very much so subjective and based on the person that's defining their own beliefs, that's defining professionalism. And there's that double standard. And so when we look at those three problems in terms of how we define professionalism, it's like, you do if you don't, you damn if you do, you damn if you don't. That's the saying, right? As a woman in the workplace, as a woman of color, it's like, how do I show up as my authentic self and be myself, wear clothes that really reflect me? Because that's a concern that I have, that, clients that I've worked with, they contact me and they're like, okay, so later, my workplace is very traditional. I feel so uncomfortable. I feel so afraid of showing up looking differently, looking like, and everybody's wearing a black blazer, and here's it, I'm showing up with this teal blazer, right? It's like, do I want to do that? Do I not want to do that? What does this mean for my job? What does this mean for the opportunities at work? And all these things are running through their minds because the environment and the spaces that they're in use those three problems of what's professional to hold them in a box, to tell them they cannot show up wearing exactly what I'm wearing today and be seen as a leader and someone who can take the company or take the organization to the next level. And so what can be done? What can we do to really change the narrative and redefine what professionalism looks like, what it means, and how can we make it more inclusive? How can we make it where women and women of color are not being marginalized for the way that they're showing up, that they are, going to be, that we're guiding them in terms of how can you be visible, take up room, take up space, use your voice, be authentic to you, and creating opportunities for them to lead, opportunities for them to, inspire and motivate and mentor others, right? Knowing that they're bringing their full and authentic self to the space. So how can we do that? On a corporate and organizational level, here's what when I think about how can corporations and organizations redefine what professional looks like, right? Going off of the three problems that I noticed, how can they redefine it? It's first of all, this is open. This is the work that is being talked about when it comes to, DEIB. It's reevaluating what your policies are. Really taking a look at what are your policies in terms of, one, how do you define professionalism? What does that look like? When you define it, what is the image that comes to mind? Right? If that image is someone that looked very European, Eurocentric, and those are the standards and belief that you have in terms of what professional looks like, then of course, look around your organization and see, based on that definition, based on the policies that you have in place, Who is that excluding? Who is it being excluded from? Who's not at the table when you define professionalism and what it looks like? Right? There are organizations that women of color feel marginalized and isolated and being penalized for showing up with their natural hair. If that's your organization, you have to reevaluate how you define professionalism to include everyone that's in the room, everyone that's at the table, everyone that's in your company, and come up with guidelines that does not exclude anyone, makes it inclusive, but at the same time, we all know, okay, we don't show up, as I say, you would wearing a bikini in the boardroom, right? That's an extreme example, just to say, but it's not excluding anyone. To give you some examples, like for instance, the military, I don't remember which arm of it, just recently changed their dress code and policy when it comes to how women show up. They included, women that they can wear nail polish now. They included women being able to wear their hair down, because the rule and the definition of professionalism yesterday and the years gone by is that, it doesn't matter, you had to pull your hair in one and go with it, right? And sometimes there's some people who I know have very tender scalp, and if they pull their hair in one, they'll get headaches. But if you and so think about your policies within your organization that's similar to that. It's like everybody needs to put their hair in one, but this person or individuals that's suffering from, migraines and headaches, whenever they do that, now have to suffer through that to meet your standard of professionalism. Right. The other thing that you have to look at is when we think about who are your policies excluding from showing up and being themselves in the workplace, and when it comes to defining professionalism and how we're showing up. You think about dress codes. You think about what, especially if your company or organization has a uniform, like a corporate uniform that they need to wear. Does your policy, does your dress code stipulate specifically that women should only wear dresses or skirts, or women should wear pantyhose? Like, we've had policies like that, which said, companies had policies like that, which said that women should only wear dresses and skirts, and they needed to wear pantyhose. No consideration was given to the weather. Like, if you live in the Caribbean, I mean, you're wearing a pantyhose, there can be some medical issues and challenges with that, but no consideration was given to that, because someone within the organization decided that that is the look of professionalism. If your organization, as I said, it's women should only wear dresses and skirts, it's like, what about that person who feels more confident and more comfortable wearing a pants? And that is what I mean by redefining professionalism to really include everyone. You're not changing it, right? You're not going where the article that I mentioned where the gentleman is like, oh, it's going to be wild, wild west where everybody's doing their own thing. It's not going to be like that. It's that you're looking at it from a full spectrum as to how can you include. What are some policies that you have that are limiting, that are creating real barriers to inclusion and belonging? What's stopping someone from showing up as themselves, right? And feeling confident? What are some of the things that you have in place when it comes to appearance, when it comes to dress codes, that's in your policies that's going to impact someone showing up as themselves, right? Or feeling a sense of inclusion and belonging, right? Because you never want to make your employees or persons within your organization feel like my house, my rules. We all know when we were growing up as teenagers and, you wanted to do something and your parent or your guardian said, my house, my rules, you can't do that once, while you're living under my roof, you'll never be able to do that. And in your mind, you're always like, I can't wait to grow up and get out of here. I can't wait. And every day, that's what you work towards. It's like, yep, can't wait to get up and go out. When your employees don't feel included and don't feel a sense of belonging because of the way that you're defining professionalism, that's the mindset that they're coming into your organization with. It's like, if I can't be myself, if you're saying that I need to wear pants and I prefer wearing dresses, or you're saying that I should wear dresses and I prefer to wear pants, or you're saying that I cannot wear a head wrap when really and truly is part of my culture, that that's how I reflect and how I embrace my culture, and you're saying I can't, then I'm going to show up at this, in this environment, collect the paycheck, I'm going to do the bare minimal, and I'm going to be looking for a company or organization that really embrace and support all of me, right? That's where your employees are going to be thinking. But you don't want that. You don't want your employees to come to work every day and give half of themselves, and also to feel impacted whenever they are trying to show up for themselves. So that's on the organizational level in terms of what you can do to redefine professionalism. Now, on the individual level, because we need the organizations to make the changes to their policies, and on the individual level, I need you to start reevaluating how you're showing up. What are some ways in which you are putting yourself in a box, thinking that in order to be successful, in order to have a seat at the table, in order to get that promotion, I need to pretend to be something or someone that I'm not, right? How are you trying to fit in? Because when you think about, you do that self-evaluation, you're also going to notice the impact trying to fit in and trying to conform may have on your mental health, may have on your well-being and your career satisfaction. If every day you are getting up to go to work and you're like, not another day, I really don't want to do this, that's where you have to, that's an indication that maybe you have outgrown the space that you're in, or there are parts of you that you are masking every time you're showing up in this space, and as a result, you're not feeling happy, confident, or motivated to be in that space. And so that's what I really want you to do from that individual level. So take stock of the way that you're showing up, right? Take stock of the way that you are showing up, because once you have a true sense of what parts of you and how you're showing up in a space that really doesn't represent you, then you start thinking about ways that you can show up as your authentic self. And that's where, working with a personal stylist really does help, because that person is going to help you define what your personal style looks like, identify, pieces that really helps you to reflect who you are, that mirrors or incorporates both your personal and professional life, and making sure that you are dressed for your body type so that you can feel confident showing up in the spaces that you're in. And that's where when I think about working with a stylist, and I think about how you can redefine professionalism as an individual, is to be the I in professionalism, right? I know LinkedIn had this campaign that they were running a couple of months ago, or maybe a year ago, time is flying. It's I am professional, meaning everything about you, who you are as an individual, is professional, right? It is professional. Do not, as you can see on the left, I think that's the left of your screen, this is my model. Diane Diaz was so awesome for a presentation, speaking engagement that I had a couple weeks ago. And she was my muse slash my slash my props. So this idea here in this black and white is the idea that we think that we need to show up as women to be successful, to have a seat at the table. But when you show up this way, you're showing up like everyone else, right? You show up in a room with 10 other people like this, more than likely you're all fading into the background. You're not speaking up. You're not taking up space. You're not letting your ideas be heard. You're not feeling like your full self. So when I think about you putting the I in professionalism, when you put yourself in the center of the work that you're doing, when you put yourself in the center in terms of how you are showing up, you can then start looking, you will then start looking, you then start looking at ways to, yes, show up wearing the appropriate clothing for the environment that you're in, but what you're not doing is try to look like what the definition of how we should show up as professional women. I mean, look at this beautiful look. Like side by side, if you look at these two photographs, one, you can clearly see that in the black and white, it's like, yep, this is just a thing. I need to go to work today and just I put this on. But in the pink, there's more of her personality, there's more beam, and you will feel this type of energy when you show up as your authentic self, wearing clothing that really depicts who you are. And so this is a perfect example of breaking away from the mold, being a change agent when it comes to appearance bias, and bringing more of your personality into your personal style, how you show up and what you wear. And so I want you to think about, as I wrap this up, I want you to think about what's a great movie that you have watched, right? Because we're thinking about this idea of redefining professionalism from the organization/corporate level and individual level, right? Think about a movie that you really love or a television show that you really love. What about that show that you loved? When you look at the actors and actresses, they all had individual roles, right? Within that movie, within that television show. And as individuals, they told their own story based on the lines that they have, and it also based on what they were wearing, like the outfits, their costume. They told a story. But collectively, when we put everyone together now, the story flows and it tells a great story enough that it impacts you, that you're like, oh, that was a great movie. Oh, that was a great television show. And that is what, when we think about redefining professionalism, it's the idea that individuals can bring themselves into this frame, into this organization, into this space, and collectively, because they're coming and being their true and authentic self, collectively, we can create a company or an organization that has a bigger impact in the world and the communities in which we serve. So whenever you're thinking about, how can you redefine professionalism, I want you to think about putting yourself into the spaces that you're in as someone who's telling a story of who you are, and how does that story align with the full picture that's being told by the company? How does it represent the company? How does it represent you? How do you show up? And so this is a part of a workshop that I do with organizations and companies, especially in the DIB space, which is diversity, inclusion, belonging space, to really help them to reshape how they see professionalism and make it more inclusive to their employees and stepping into the spaces. So if this is, love to give this workshop to an organization that you may be part of, to really help your organization be more inclusive and also help you to transform who you are from the inside out, knowing that you can confidently show up as your authentic self. So if your organization is looking for a speaker on this topic, then definitely send me a message. I'll be happy to have that conversation. Thank you all very much for joining. If we haven't connected as yet, I encourage you to hit that follow button here on LinkedIn. Send me a DM. Let me know your thoughts on today's conversation. If you're here live, thank you for being here. If you're watching the replay, thank you very much for coming back and listening to today's conversation. Until next time, remember that representation is not just you being in the room or having a seat at the table, but it's also how you show up. Have a great day. Bye.